Serving our communities on the front lines, but seldom heard, fire rescue personnel oftentimes are the tip of the spear when addiction leads to medical crisis.
It's called carfentanil, and in the U.S., people are dying and overdosing from the toxic opioid, including this now infamous photo of a man and woman in Ohio passed out in their car with the woman's 4-year-old grandson in the backseat. Police suspect the heroin was laced with carfentanil.
The synthetic opioid is 50 times more potent than heroin, and exposure to just a few small grains can have deadly consequences. In Five Ives' case, the exposure and his reaction to it was almost instant.
A couple seconds later, he took some steps back and he collapsed. I ran over to him and I grabbed him and he was ODing.
Deputy Five Eye taken by ambulance, overdosing again and again on his way to the hospital. But without his partner and that Narcan, he knows he would have been just another statistic in this country's deadly drug overdose epidemic.
These heartbreaking stories come to life day after day for many families and first responders across this country with tragic regularity. We hear the stories but rarely discuss the family experience during these times, and today we begin with the firefighter's perspective. So I'm here with my good friend Kirk Chapman, fire rescue extraordinaire with more than 30 years of experience. He's here to share his insights on the drug epidemic, including fentanyl, and how it affects families. Kirk, what's been your experience on the job, and how's the drug-related calls changed over the years?
Years and years ago, it was just typical cocaine, it was just, you take them to the hospital and they recover and you move on. Now, they're going out on body bags, and because they just, it's crazy. It's what it's doing to families is unbelievable, and just it's tough. And it's made the job very tough because you're walking into them wanting you to do everything in your power to save their loved one. And it's time and time and time again until it finally just expires.
Sometimes you have enough information based on the call to know what you're getting ready to walk in on. In your mind there, are there times where you go, okay, this sounds like this might be an opioid situation?
Actually, we call them frequent flyers. We know the addresses by heart. The only thing that we don't know is whether it's the brother, the sister, or who this time it's going to be. I've gone on the same multiple addresses over the years to where I watched the sister die, the brother die, and the mother and father are just beside themselves because there's nothing they could have done. Because if you do, you enable. And so going back to that question, yeah, for the most part, you're going to decipher when the call comes down that you're going out on an overdose. I've had them come to the fire station, pull up in a car, shoot up, and I get a knock at the door and said, somebody's in their car, it looks like they're dead. And you have to go out there and pop them with Narcan to get them back. And so, yeah, for the most part, you know what you're walking into. But a lot of it, if you're in the same zone, and I was in the same zone for 32, 33 years, you knew the people that it was, for the most part. It was the same people.
I got to circle back to this. You just said something that I found somewhat disturbing and sad. They'll pull into the fire station parking lot.
Actually, we've had a couple where they've come over from the West Coast and they pick up their drugs, fentanyl, whatever it may be, and they'll just pull into a fire station. They'll shoot it up because they know that we've got the Narcan, and for the most part, they're gonna be saved. So they know. It's a very, very common thing.
My goodness. I look. I've seen my share of folks pass out in cars and going, okay, this, I think I know what this is, and then we'll pop open the Narcan as well. But we've not, to the best of my knowledge, had anyone pull into the parking lot to knowing that we were going to be close at hand. That level of addiction, that level of having to get that high to where you're risking absolutely know you're risking your life at that point, is how we get to well over 1,000 deaths a week on average from these overdoses. You mentioned Narcan, and I guess I just did too. So, can you explain to the folks what this is, so they can have an idea of
it's given through. You can do it intravenous. You can do it, just shot. And what you're doing is basically you're reversing the effects of whatever medication or whatever drug that they're using. And what happens is the more that we use that Narcan to counteract the drug that they've used, that Narcan becomes less and less effective because they build up an immunity to it. So that's going back to running the same family multiple times over and over again. It worked. It worked the next time, and maybe the next time it didn't work as well.
You think these folks have any idea that there is a tolerance developed behind the Narcan?
Absolutely. But I think that the power of the drug is they're not worried about the consequence. I ran a school teacher who lived in a beautiful development, had a wife, had kids, and he was so hooked on the oxycodone that he lost everything. He lost his job, he lost his home, he lost his wife, he lost his kids. And to this day, I don't know what has happened to him. Hopefully he went into a facility at rehab and he got straightened out to get his life back. But the risk or there's to doing this, people don't care about the consequence. And it's sad. It's sad. So yes, Narcan's been a great thing, but it also only works for so long until you become numb to it.
Right.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah, not the kind of immunity you want to be building up.
Absolutely.
I've been fortunate in my career to not have had, to have not come into inadvertent contact with fentanyl, because we do have first responders, whether it be fire rescue, police, even correction officers who are having to deal with drug elements. And I've been fortunate not to come into inadvertent contact, but we've had folks who went down just by touching, not ingesting, not inhaling, not injecting, not smoking, just touching the packaging, and go down. And by go down, I mean overdose. They go into shock and have to be treated right there on the scene. And I think the vast majority of people don't understand just how powerful this drug is. I wasn't being tongue-in-cheek at the very beginning about calling it a weapon of mass destruction. These drugs, the precursors are coming out of China. They're being assembled in Mexico, and they're being trucked across the border by the ton. And again, not being tongue in cheek. When I say by the ton, it's by the ton, folks. And 2 milligrams is enough to overdose on. That's a lethal dose. 2 milligrams is a lethal dose. To put that in perspective, most folks, when they get a headache, they'll take a 800 milligram ibuprofen, or they'll take a 500 milligram acetaminophen. That's 500 milligram acetaminophen. That's an 800 milligram ibuprofen. 2 milligrams of fentanyl is enough to kill you. Enough to kill. 1 kilogram, then, once you do the math, will equal the enough doses to kill 500,000 people. 500,000 people. 1 kilo, 500,000 people. 500,000. There are multiple kilos in a ton, and we are capturing the stuff at the borders and at sea by the ton. And the reason why I would call it a weapon of mass destruction is no drug dealer on earth, okay, cocaine, marijuana, heroin, they're not moving tons of those things to kill their users. They want to fill a supply gap. People want it, they supply it. They're not trying to. You end up dying eventually if you don't get off the stuff. You end up dying, but it's not off that first hit. Otherwise, they wouldn't have any customers. That's why I'll say it's a weapon of mass destruction. Because when you're shipping that much, you're just trying to kill people. That's it. That's all you want. You want death. You want death, and you want destruction. So that's why I say I'm not being tongue-in-cheek when I call it a weapon of mass destruction. These numbers that we are seeing being seized on the borders just last week, several hundred tons. And there was a gentleman that rightly asked the question, who are they trying to supply these drugs to, because no one's going to be alive to take them? And with that question, the light bulb went off. I'm not trying to save anybody. These aren't drug dealers. These are our enemies, and they have a purpose. But before I move on, is there anything you want to add to that? Or
yeah, a couple things. Going back to my time in the job, I went, like I said, I was in my zone that I worked, the city that I worked for 30 some years, 33, 34 years to be exact. And I went from a city that I got hired with to a cardiac city, to running strokes, running heart attacks, running people falling off ladders, to running your 911 calls. Now 90% of that zone is psychiatric overdose, given the wrong psychiatric medication, having a reaction. So it's changed so much. We carry fentanyl on our truck. The process that we have to go through in making sure that it's logged in every day, make sure that it's locked up. It has two ways to get to it. It's crazy. So we go to a store, that truck has to be locked. It has to be in a secure box, because these users know most of fire departments, ambulances do carry this stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's crazy, and I've seen it go from to the lay public to police officers, firefighters, paramedics that are now become victim to it, and it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, it really is.
No, it's unfortunate that unfortunately it happens, and that is difficult to witness. In conjunction with everything else you have to see, to see a colleague succumb to those pressures, and I mentioned earlier, there are the inadvertent incidents, and those are heartbreaking enough. And there are dangers that come with the job. We have officers now that are more likely to succumb to some sort of drug interaction on the job, doing the job, not doing anything illicit, just doing their job, more likely to have to suffer some sort of injury or death from that than they are likely to be shot or even assaulted in any other way. And it's an epidemic, and it is a weapon, and it's being used not just on the people who have succumbed to the pressure of taking these drugs. These are also adversely affecting the folks who are putting themselves in harm's way in order to protect the rest of the community.
Yes.
So there's that aspect of it as well. So you come on scene. There'll be folks that'll make it, and then there'll be folks that don't, unfortunately. Either way, there's an aftermath for the family. Now, for the folks who make it, there's an opportunity to get right and change your course. Okay. But there are folks who don't survive the event, unfortunately. From your experience, have you interacted with the family after these events? Say a death, their loved one has passed away. Have you ever gone back and interacted with them?
Yeah, for the most part, I have. I deal with addiction in my family, and I've been an enabler. I've had to hard love. So I've been through that, and I don't know if I want to call it steps, but I've been through the progression of getting help and putting them in rehabs and put them in halfway houses when they come out to try to get them back on the right track. In my situation, I've been very blessed that so far it's worked for my family. So going through what I've gone through, yes, I have talked to people that are on scene that I was in their shoes at that time. And all they want to do is do everything they can for their family or their loved ones. I've been on that side of it where their loved one has had a second chance and they're on their way to the hospital. Our rescue's taken them. I've been on the side of it where they weren't so lucky and now they're going to be burying their kid, and now you're trying to console them and you're trying to help them, which I hope to God I never am in that situation. But as far as pointing them in the right direction, yeah, I've stayed on scene sometimes an hour after the call just to console the family and try to explain to them, the different Marchman acts, the Baker acts, and different things like that they can do for their family, because most people don't. They're not aware of that. So yes, I have many, many times.
Because it takes a lot. It takes a lot to witness that devastation. Because I know it takes something. People. I don't think people really take into consideration the toll any tragic scene takes on the personnel that's coming to help out. It takes something out of them as well. So it takes something out of you as a responder, and then you go above and beyond. you take that extra step to stay around and console to the best of your ability. And not everyone's built for that. Maybe that I should frame it that way. Not everyone is built for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is that stemming from your having to witness this in your own personal life, that it extends into your professional life, the desire to go a little bit further?
I'd say in my situation, yes, because I've been through it and I know how hard it is. Mm-hmm. So for me, just going that extra little bit could make all the difference in the world.
Right.
I think we as first responders have to be very numb, and I was very numb for many years. And as I got older, I was stuffing all my baggage in my back pocket, and it was falling out. So now I deal with it differently. I can't be numb anymore. So if I have to bring somebody and talk to them and try to point them in the right direction, I have no problem. I don't care if it's 11 o'clock at night. I don't care if it's 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm fortunate that the crew that I'm with are all on the same page. And we try to do the best. Yeah. So I think if you're in this profession, whether you're police officer, paramedic, firefighter, EMT, whatever, I think it's just your nature. Mm-hmm. I think you're born to help.
Right.
And go that extra mile.
No, I agree with you. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's a calling. And even in the midst of that calling, and I think you just labeled it so succinctly, it's the numbing. It's a coping mechanism because it's not that your heart don't go out to these folks, because they do. I mean, you're there helping because that is your calling, and sometimes the only way you get through the day is to, in what some folks estimate, is shut their feelings down. That's that numbness, and you're exactly right. You're just stuffing it in your back pocket, and at some point it does start falling out. And if not properly addressed, that in and of itself becomes an issue. And I've seen that play out over the past 20 plus years. I've seen it play out in divorce. I've seen it play out in drug addiction. I've seen it play out, unfortunately, in suicide. And so I gather that part of your process at this point for yourself is because you know what these folks are experiencing, you can come alongside. Instead of tucking that in your back pocket, you're going, hey, I know what you're feeling. Let me come alongside you.
Yes. But a lot of the time, you're giving them your outlook or your what has happened to you on it, and sometimes they don't want that answer, because sometimes you just got to let it go. You just got to let it go and let this person find their way. There used to be rock bottom. I don't firmly believe in what I've seen, that rock bottom anymore is death. So we have to now somehow instead of letting him hit rock bottom, you have to kind of bring it up to him, if that makes any sense. So yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. The situation is becoming more prolific. Unfortunately, I was just checking over another stat that I didn't bring up earlier, and the pills off the streets are showing 42% of them are now coming in at 2 milligrams or more. We mentioned that 2 milligrams earlier about being the lethal dose. 42% of these pills now are testing at more than 2 milligrams. Again, weapon of mass destruction. You're not trying to form an addict anymore. You're trying to kill. I grew up. I was a kid in the '80s. I remember what crack did to my neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods vividly. I remember it vividly. Depressing doesn't begin to cover what I saw. But even those guys, as degraded and as detrimental as they were to the community, they were not trying to kill people. They gave you your first rock for free because they knew you were going to be hooked. And then they knew they had a customer until that customer body just couldn't take it anymore. Okay, but that could be years. These guys now with the fentanyl, they're not looking to get anybody hooked per se. That's not their mission. They have a very different mission. So when you mention we can't wait for rock bottom anymore. We can't wait for rock bottom because rock bottom is dead. Rock bottom is dead now. That is you know there's only consoling the family after that. That's all you have left is consoling the family. So part of the help in this process is one, we can't afford to wait. We got to get folks help when we see it. We have to meet them where they are, right where they are, right then, right there. Because if they can be reasoned with, even a little bit, that is their rock bottom. Once you pop the Narcan, if they come back from that's pretty much. They have two options at that point, whether they realize it or not. And so it takes folks to come alongside them, and not having to. And it's unfortunate that you've been put in a position where you've had to employ empathy to console loved ones of those who have passed. Now it's time for us to get out there and say, hey, look, we can't wait for rock bottom. You know, enough with consoling loved ones, having to console loved ones. We'll do that if it's necessary, but let's get to a point where it's not necessary. This is not marijuana. This is not even cocaine. It's not even crack. Okay, this is not those things. As bad as they are, this is something different. This is a thorough undermining of a society. That's all this is. This is not about getting high. It's not about escaping reality. If the only thing you're going to escape is life, that is it. And if that's your goal, then that's your goal. But if you want to do something illicit and live, fentanyl ain't. That's not where you need to be. And you don't need to be anywhere near any of these other things. But yes, again, rock bottom is death when it comes to fentanyl. Part of, other than recognition and recognizing what this is, because I hope my goal is to get people angry about this. People need to be angry. That's why I want this label a weapon of mass destruction, because that should make you angry. Then these folks aren't coming to get your money. They don't care anything about your money. They don't care anything about it. Your money is not relevant in this conversation. Your life is, period. Like I said, that crack dealer gave you that first hit for free because they knew you was going to bring that money. You were going to get it come hell or high water. You was going to find a way to get that money, and you was going to get it and give it to them so you can have another high. That's not what this is. And people need to get mad. This is something to be upset about. The games are over.
Absolutely.
So now, what do we do, Kurt? I mean, how do we help these folks? Any insight as to what can activate?
It comes within. To me, it comes to what I see comes in. I'll give you, for instance, I had a good friend of mine 2 years ago, firefighter, paramedic, one of the best paramedics I ever knew. Nurse, he had his nursing license. Great guy. He had demons, and he went to buy some, whether it be pills or whatever he did, and it was laced with fentanyl. And he overdosed at a Wawa gas station. And young man, in his 40s, and life's over. His career's gone, everything. Life is over. I felt terrible. I still feel terrible. But he was a big boy. He knew better than anyone to what was going on with this stuff and what it would do. He ran the calls. But this outweighed this, and he was victim to it. The signs of a loved one or signs of friends. I mean, we watch our people at work. We know our crews. We know when people are having good days. We know when they're having bad days, and we keep an eye on each other. I've been very, very blessed and fortunate that I've always had good crews. Really never had to deal with that. But we have had people in my department that have had to go to facilities and rehab and the whole 9 yards to get straightened out. So to answer that question, I really don't know what we do. I mean, it's, I guess, education, but it doesn't seem like education is outweighing what they're getting out of what they're getting from the drug. And everybody says it's not going to happen to me.
Right.
Far from it.
No, the statistics doesn't bear that out. It will happen. Yes, I know. Yeah, you have that I call it the Iron Man mentality. Oh, I can do this. It won't affect me. It won't bother me. It won't. And absolutely, yes, it will. There's no two ways about it. One of the things, and I mentioned it earlier, was we have to once we recognize that we're being attacked, and that's what this is. It's an attack. I guess I'm just that type A personality. When you come for me, you've just made this a me or you situation. I'm going to pick me.
Yes.
And whatever it is you want to present to me that is detrimental to me, detrimental to my family, detrimental to my career, detrimental to my community, I'm gonna send you packing the best way I can. And and you know what? You might beat me. I don't know. I tell folks I'm nobody's Billy Badass. I can take a whooping as much as I can give one. However, at some point we got to wake up and get angry about this because you're absolutely right. You 30, 40, 50, you know what drugs are. There's no more educating you at this point. You educate the kids coming up because they don't have the experience. At 30, 40, 50 years old, the question is what are you doing? And I get quite a bit of it. Probably has to do with escaping.
Absolutely.
It's escapism. Something's not quite right. And I know a lot of folks get addicted to opioids through medical conditions because it is a prolific painkiller that happens to be highly addictive. And even the non-synthetic opioids has its problems. That's at the top we it was 38%. 38% of even the prescription opioid deaths. It's a 38% increase in prescription opioid deaths, and 55% in illicit. So even the prescription opioids has its problems. Speaking of empathy, my heart goes out to those folks who are in this chronic pain, and they're looking for relief, and this is what they end up giving, and it leads to other problems. So my heart goes out to those folks. I don't begrudge or belittle those folks in that situation. who are actively looking for alternatives because they realize that this is not the path for them. And of course, there's drug programs and 12-step programs and things of this nature. And there's folks who are like actively seeking those things out. But for the life of me, I think I mentioned it already. Well, I already have about escapism. It's an escape. But Kurt, we got to find a different escape. And there'll be plenty of folks who, and again, this really does come down to blessings and curses. And I've been incredibly blessed over my lifetime to have seen, neighborhoods decimated by drug use where they were once great blue collar neighborhoods where everybody knew everybody, and it turned into, hell on earth, with violence and drug addiction. So I've seen that side of it and been very blessed not to have succumb to that environment and been able to move on. Not everyone has been so blessed. Folks, we got to buckle down, embrace family, embrace each other, and let you in as much as I don't want to get too tongue in cheek because there are plenty of things I don't want to do, but I'd rather do than give up my life to these satanic forces who are hell bent on taking us clean out of here, and we are losing thousands by the week. And I actually think some of these numbers may be soft, just based on what I see in this community. Just on this community, these are supposed to be nationwide numbers from the CDC, and I think there may be some underreporting here, but that's okay. That's neither here nor there. It's happening. That's the point. It's happening. I want to circle back to one other thing because you nailed it, and I meant to bring it up, but you did, and I'm glad you did because it brought it into my remembrance. The lacing of other drugs is becoming more prolific. We're finding fentanyl in heroin more and more. We're finding fentanyl in ecstasy, and it's back to the attack when you have folks go, you know what? I don't want no part of these opioids. I'm seeing what it's doing to folks. It's destroying. I just want to go to the club and have a good time. I want to go to the club, have a good time. Hand me that X. Hand me that, And now the X is laced with fentanyl. And now the marijuana is laced with fentanyl. It used to be, back in the day, I don't know, it may still be a thing. You had Sherm, marijuana laced with LSD, and that was that was horrific to see people do. Yeah, we think bath salts are crazy. That's not, how people act on bath salts is nothing new if you ever watch somebody smoke Sherm. But anyway, but you think you're going to get something that's not that harmful or in their estimation not harmful, but now you can't hardly get drugs anymore without it being laced with fentanyl, and it brings a different high that you will continue to seek, and the next thing you know, you're looking for fentanyl.
Right. Absolutely.
Because once you get something that's not laced with fentanyl, now it doesn't do it for you anymore.
Exactly.
And that was never your intention, but it doesn't have to be. Again, ladies and gentlemen, it's an attack.
Yes.
Can't make it any plainer than that. This is an attack, and it's unfortunately it's going to get worse. So we're getting ready to button this up. So, is there anything else you'd like to share? Any other insights?
The only thing I would want to say is I've seen it from both sides. I've seen it from loved ones being hooked on medications. I've gone through, pulling them out from under bridges, taking them to detox, multiple times. I've had, theft. Name it. It's happened. And to this day, I call it the chess game. And for me, I have to, when my loved one calls, I have to decipher the story that I'm being told, whether it's fact or fiction. So I have to anticipate this move is going to make what my next move is going to be, because if I make the wrong move, I now become enabling again.
Yes. Yeah.
I make this move. Did I miss some opportunity that I'd be on the side of burying one of my loved ones? So for the families that are out there, they're gonna be going through this for the rest of their lives. Once an addict, it's a fight,
right?
And I'm gonna be dealing with it for a long time.
Yeah, it's every day.
And every day,
yeah.
It's every day. And what's normal for the families that can have loved ones in their life and not have to worry about fact or fiction, their face value, feel blessed. And then on the other side of it, I could sit at the station and listen to the radio. I think I counted 15 overdoses the other day that went off into the radio in different zones. So it's crazy.
Yeah. And like I said, unfortunately, I see some storm clouds on the horizon. Economically, that's going to, if we don't embrace one another now and realize that we are best when we are able to engage and be engaged by family, by those who love us, and not seek escapism, but seek the warmth and love of family, then this matter will become worse before it gets better, and that's unfortunate. Something that you and I definitely don't want to see, and so we endeavor to get this out, and say, hey, folks, let's pay attention. Let's pay attention to what's going on in your families. If you see something, and I kind of hate this saying, because to me it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, especially when it pertains to what's happening in the family. If you see something, say something. Don't let it go. Get angry about it. Don't get angry with your loved ones. Get angry with the people who want to kill them. This is no longer a game. This isn't about getting high. This is about death and destruction. And if you don't mind that happening in your family, fine. Please stay away from me, because I'm going to figure you out really quick. But for those who want to save their families, pay attention and say something. For God's sake, pray, prepare, and love one another, because the family is on trial. Until next time.